Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. The Jaguars have announced their initial practice squad for the 2023 season. We will get into it right here, right now. Appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content here, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out GenJag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. Check out the hat I'm wearing right now. You can pick up one of those. GenJag.com/shop. So let's get into this practice squad. The Jaguars have announced 13 players being signed to their practice squad. The Jags technically have 17 with their International Pathways program. They will keep their safety and in all likelihood Ayo Ayolola, who has been with the team for the last couple years. But looking at the players on the regular practice squad, again, 13 out of the 16 spots have been filled for the Jaguars here. You're looking at OL Chandler Brewer, who the Jaguars brought over this past offseason. They've liked a lot of what he can do on the interior for them. Outside linebacker DJ Coleman is a rookie who did some things, definitely has some physicality, some punch to him, both literally and physically. Got into a little altercation during training camp. Offensive lineman Coy Cronk, who the Jaguars have talked about valuing as well. Defensive lineman Deshaun Dixon came into the Jaguars organization last year as an undrafted free agent, was primarily playing on the edge. Now he's playing a little bit more interior defensive lineman, 3-tech, 5-tech. He had flashes throughout training camp and the preseason as an interior penetrator for the Jaguars. Really good that they were able to get him back. And all the players the Jaguars either released or waived from their 90-man roster did clear waivers, and so they were able to pick from that entire bunch of players for their practice squad, which is really fortunate considering how well their depth performed throughout the preseason and training camp. And you're able to see preseason, other teams are studying every game, and all the Jaguars players were still able to get through waivers, which is great for the team. Great for Deshaun Dixon to be able to stick around. You also see 2023 draft pick, day 3 pick out of Pitt, Eric Hallett, sticking around, a guy who can play some corner, also a line at safety for the Jaguars, did both throughout training camp and the preseason, did both at Pitt. I think he has shown some ball skills. I think he was really close to potentially making the 53-man roster, but with some of the depth that they had on the back end this year that they just established through the last couple years of drafting, adding players here and there. Eric Hallett was just on the outside looking in, so he wasn't able to make the 53, but they get him back here, one of their draft picks on their practice squad. Linebacker Daquan Jackson as well. The Jaguars like what he brings to the table. Tight end Derek Parrish, and we'll see what he ends up doing for the Jaguars in their practice squad. Another one of their draft picks. They like the guy. They like the athleticism. I don't personally think it worked out very well for him on the offensive side of the ball. They did give him some defensive reps in the preseason finale. Will they potentially give him defensive reps throughout the rest of the season, on the practice squad, and see if he can kind of establish himself more as an edge defender, which is what he did at Houston and did at an extremely high level. He just doesn't really have the size and length you typically are looking for from an edge rusher, but the production and the athleticism are absolutely there for Derek Parrish, who will stick around with the Jaguars on the practice squad. We talked about Nathan Rourke already, the quarterback who's a CFL legend. Really excited he's able to stick with the Jags. I think he showed a lot throughout the preseason, a lot that you liked from the athleticism, the arm talent, the accuracy, and the poise. I think that you see Nathan Rourke as a developmental quarterback. Can he one day develop into a guy you feel comfortable with as your QB2 down the road, potentially if CJ Beathard ages out or however that may happen? I think Nathan Rourke sticking around on the practice squad is great for the Jaguars. It's great for Nathan Rourke as well. Continue to develop under Doug Peterson with Trevor Lawrence, with CJ Beathard, with Press Taylor and Mike McCoy. I think it's a really good situation for Nathan Rourke, who I was really impressed with throughout the preseason. Offensive lineman Darrell Williams, who played very well for the Jaguars. He can play some guard. He played a lot of center for the Jaguars throughout training camp and the preseason, got a lot of good reps in my opinion, at center for them. So good for him being able to stick around. You also see wide receiver Seth Williams, who made a ton of plays for the Jaguars throughout training camp in the preseason. Really excited to see him back on the practice squad. He's a guy that I think definitely had a claim for the 53-man roster, but was not able to sneak onto the 53-man roster. There was just too much competition at the back end of the wide receiver room for the Jaguars, but him sticking around on the practice squad, good stuff. Tavon Campbell, the Jaguars added last year. They brought him back in free agency this year, a young player that I think has a fair amount of skill. You saw that throughout training camp in the preseason. I think just continuing to improve his consistency, he was able to get his hands on the football quite a bit throughout the preseason, especially in that first game against the Cowboys. But yeah, I think Tavon Campbell, nice practice squad add. Running back Snoop Connor, Jaguars drafted last year, late on day 3 there. I think he's a player the Jaguars like. I think he did a lot of things really well for the Jaguars throughout training camp in the preseason, but they just have too much talent at running back. You know, obviously your top two, Etienne, Bigsby, you have Hasty, who you really like as a third down back, and Dearness Johnson, a do-it-all back who's really good on special teams. And then wide receiver Jacob Harris, who he showed out throughout training camp in the preseason as well. I think he had a little bit of struggles early on in minicamp, but you look at what he did for the Jaguars down the stretch in training camp and then in the preseason, making a lot of plays for the team. I think you really like what you have in Jacob Harris from a size and athleticism standpoint. I think he's a guy that they were considering keeping on the 53 potentially, but they're able to get him back as well. So again, 13 players on the Jaguars practice squad as of now. They will be able to add a 3 more players to that practice squad, and then of course keep their international pathway player Ayo Lola as well. We assume that will happen, but that'll do it for the practice squad additions. Obviously, this is more about your team's depth, about your pipeline of talent than actually making an impact on the field in 2023. So when I get excited about the practice squad, it's because I think that you have players there that have legitimate NFL talent, players that can come in, and if there are injuries, maybe they can help you out. If you're able to keep them around for, 2024, 2025. Some of these guys could potentially become 53-man roster type players. I think you see that consistently with teams that draft and develop well, with teams that hit undrafted free agency and develop well. I think the Jaguars are becoming one of those teams. And so for me, that's where the excitement comes from. Yeah, sure. You're probably not going to see any of these guys playing on the active roster, but that doesn't mean you can't get excited about the depth of your football team, the pipeline of talent in your organization. That's exactly where I'm at. As someone covering the Jaguars and rooting for the Jaguars as well. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, if you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. Have a good one, Duval.